It's time for a subscriber appreciation top 10. We're gonna do top 10 elevated horror movies. Let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new top 10. Just on a whim today, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do a top 10 and I'm gonna let my subscribers pick. And I went on Twitter. And my God, I didn't realize how many submissions I was gonna get. I mean, you guys really requested a lot of great top 10 ideas. I'm counting right now, 97 of you guys gave me ideas for top 10. So thank you so much. This one is gonna be for elevated horror movies. So it's gonna be dedicated to Victoria Rasmussen, who's a good friend. We've been friends for years. But I'm reading through and then she goes, elevated horror movies. And I thought timing wise, it'd be perfect because Scream 5 just came out. And the opening, everybody was always talking about elevated horror. Like, there's a lot of people, they don't like that term at all, elevated horror, which I don't get that. I mean, it's just another brand of horror. No better, no worse. And it's got to have a name, right? So I think maybe Scream like created that name for elevated horror, but like I said, it doesn't mean it's better. It's just a different brand of horror. To me, elevated horror is like, you know, you got a very talented young director. The plot is usually a little bit more ambitious. The production is unique. Sometimes A24 is attached. You know, it's just, like I said, it's just another flavor. That's all it is. Nothing wrong with it. But you know what? Just to give you guys some shout outs here. Darkest Blader 20 favorite soundtracks in horror. I actually did that. I did soundtracks in horror. Did I do? Or no, I did scores. I did 2 videos for top 10 scores. Avery McReynolds, top 10 plot twist. I've done that, Avery. Joshua Hayes, 10 not horror, but you consider horror, or, ooh, I like that idea actually. Maybe I will do that one down the line. That sounds fun. Like say Cobra or Terminator. Slasher in Suits, top 10 horror movie jump scares, Friday the 13th Carrie. That's a great one too. I did top 10 oh shit moments. I did 2 of those. So that's kind of like jump scares. Top 10 rape revenge, Iwan. Lee Lewis Taffy, top 10 best British horror. So yeah, and then so many more. Thank you guys. But Victoria, this one is for you. Okay, so we're gonna give you 3 honorable mentions. First honorable mention, I'm gonna go with The Lodge. The Lodge has one of the most surprising scenes. Like somebody mentioned jump scares. There is a jump scare in this movie that will make, like, holy shit. Like, this was amazing. It might have been on my oh shit moments. And it's pretty early in the movie. And it really throws you off guard. Okay, but it's about this divorced couple. And there's definitely some tension there. And the husband goes to this cabin with his kids and his girlfriend, you know, because he's getting a divorce. And once they're in the cabin, that's when like the really creepy stuff happens. But also this movie's great because it's like set in like the snow. Like, I love movies that are set in, you know, like winter environments, because that just kind of adds to the elements, because it's a little bit less of a safety net, I guess, because when you're uncomfortable because you're freezing, that also adds to it. But man, this movie does get really dark, and especially when you're dealing with children and like demonic stuff. Yeah. Also, Elvis Presley's granddaughter is in this. She's the main character and she's excellent. Next honorable mention is Possessor. This was a movie, it was a funny experience because I went to the theater and literally the manager, he like ran up to me and he was like, what are you watching? And I was like, we're gonna watch Possessor. And he said, he was like begging me not to watch the movie. He's like, I don't think you can handle this movie. This is a very violent movie. And I was like, sir, I got this. You don't know who you're talking to. Brandon Cronenberg, Apple Doesn't Fall Far from the Tree, David Cronenberg. This feels like a Cronenberg type of movie. Definitely some strong sci-fi elements, but man, just a visual feast. But it's trippy too, because you got this woman who is kind of this like detective, and she goes into the body of this guy. And so she kind of sees things through his eyes, and it goes down a really dark path. The guy was right. It gets really bloody. Like some really heavy, trippy shit. You know, if you're into like Cronenberg type movies, then this is great, because it feels like a Cronenberg movie. Okay, last honorable mention, and I'll admit this one should probably go more in the top 10, but I'll just put it here, just so I can at least name it, Blackcoat's Daughter. This might be the darkest movie of the bunch, and it's beautifully directed. And one thing I love about Blackcoat's Daughter so much, besides, you know, that it deals with demonic stuff and the devil and all this stuff is just the element of misdirection. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but you're following the plot along and you're thinking one thing, and then like in the third act, they pull the rug out from under you. Even from a character standpoint, you're really surprised, like, oh shit, okay, I didn't expect that. But then the last act in this movie, I needed like a hug and a warm blanket after what had happened in the last act. Because man, bone-chilling type stuff. You know, this movie really gets under your skin. It's a slow burn, and I know a lot of people don't, but hell, all these movies, there's people that aren't gonna like these, you know? Like I said, it's a flavor. And Blackcoat's Daughter probably is the perfect example of elevated horror. But amazing performances by Emma Roberts and Kiernan Shipka. Okay, here we go, top 10. And I tried to throw some older ones on here too. So number 10 is gonna be Rosemary's Baby. I freaking love this movie. This movie is like a warm blanket to me. Even though some might say it's long and not a lot happens, even though I think a lot happens in Rosemary's Baby. I just really can get absorbed in this movie. Just watching this character, Rosemary, sink into this like abyss of control. That's what this movie is. All these people around her are controlling her. This movie is about control, but it's just disguised as this woman who is pregnant with, you know, the devil's baby. You can separate that and look at it as this is a woman that is becoming sick because of mental illness, because she's being constantly controlled by everyone. And I love the ambiguous nature of this. It's not completely upfront, and they don't even like show any of the demonic stuff until like the end of the movie. Yeah, there is the middle scene where she is basically raped by the devil. Wow. Roman Polanski's direction in this movie is like top notch. It's timeless. Like this movie could have been made today, and I'm not counting the remake, which I haven't seen. I don't need to ever watch that. This movie is so freaking sacred, okay? But it stands next to anything made today. That's what I'm trying to say. It's wonderful. Number 9, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Talk about unique and eccentric performances. The main actor in this, Barry Keoghan, who I think is like a teenager, one of the strongest and most unique performances I have ever seen. Like this is an actor that is going to go really far. Like to me, he's like today's Paul Dano. You know, when Paul Dano in his earlier movies when he was really young, he automatically stood out because he was like born an amazing actor. Same thing with Barry Keoghan. I could watch this kid act The Phone Book. His performance in this is haunting and really scary. He's psychotic, but he's not the type of character that like gets loud. He's very controlled and calm and collected. But he plays this character Martin, who basically tries to infiltrate this family. And Colin Farrell plays this like cardiovascular surgeon, and throughout the movie he becomes more and more obsessed with the doctor and the family. And eventually they realize that this is a very dangerous young boy. And I love movies like this because it's not an adult, it's a child. And that actually makes you drop your guard a little bit more. And when you underestimate evil, then the results can become downright chilling. Number 8, The Night House. I recently saw this. Rebecca Hall's performance is jaw-dropping. This movie deals with grief, I think, better than most because her husband commits suicide at the beginning of the movie. And so throughout the rest of the movie, she thinks that her husband is trying to reach out to her. It gets really dark and heavy, and when you throw the element of suicide in there, then it can really hit you where you don't want it to. You know, this movie deals with very heavy themes, and it requires the work of a very skilled actress. And Rebecca Hall's performance is just so chilling, you know, and it's very nuanced, and she doesn't go the route that you would think she would go. You know, because there's so many different ways you can deal with grief. And I just love her performance because it's heartbreaking. It really is. But she doesn't do the thing that you would think she would do, which is just like cry profusely throughout, you know, very nuanced. Number 7 is Saint Maud. This deals with religion, and the main character is this nurse, and she is taking care of this cancer patient. And what's interesting about this is, I guess, really her relationship with this cancer patient and how it can go into these horrific directions. And then when you combine religion in there, and it raises these questions about life after death, but adding these horrific elements to it. And there are some visuals in this movie, especially in the last act, that are so damn unsettling. And as a matter of fact, like the very last scene of this movie, you will not be able to get it out of your head. Number 6, Us, Jordan Peele. Most elevated movies, I think, are polarizing anyway. But this might be the most polarizing because there are people that downright hate this movie. Actually, there's another movie on here that I think is maybe even more debated and polarizing. But Us, I loved it. I freaking love the plot. I love the twist. And people always argue, like, if you called the twist at the beginning of the movie, then does that make the movie bad? It can. You know, like I'm looking at you, Spiral, because they offer nothing in return for giving away the twist, even though they didn't want to give away the twist. I think this movie, I'm sure Jordan Peele wasn't that surprised that people figured out the twist of this movie early on. That's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is this main character and watching her journey throughout this, and really, I guess, the inevitability of the community down below. And, you know, this is a daring plot, and you can definitely poke holes into it because when you start talking about, you know, another society and the infrastructure and just the logistics of it all, you can get lost in all the details, and it can pull you away from the plot. But for me, it didn't do any of that. I think there was just enough there to make me buy what was going on. And I was just so into the characters, and really just this idea of another family that looks exactly like you trying to kill you. I mean, on paper, just that premise right there alone, okay, I'm hooked. And then you got Jordan Peele's amazing direction. And this is definitely a horror movie. Like, there's some chilling freaking elements in this. Number 5, gonna give you a classic, The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, he's hit and miss for me. You know, I mean, he can really go way out on a limb as far as being weird. But for this movie, Stanley Kubrick wanted to take Stephen King's work and basically do a horror movie and try to scare the shit out of an audience. And he succeeds in spades. The Shining, to me, is one of the scariest movies ever made. And I think that's because of isolation, the performance by Jack Nicholson, which I can't imagine any other actor pulling that off the way he did. Watching Shelley Duvall completely fall apart, both in character form and as an actress behind the scenes, you know, that stuff's legendary. And people always give Jack Nicholson credit, deservedly so, but man, Shelley Duvall's performance as well, you have to give her credit, because this is a character that seemed completely terrified of her own husband. But Stanley Kubrick's direction too, like, unmatched. Like, you can't, this is like the creme de la creme of directors. So many directors, probably on this list even, have taken a page from The Shining. It's obvious. Number 4, Hereditary. What I love about Hereditary is how it deals with horror in the family. You know, you got this family and they are just constantly at odds with each other, completely stressed out. And especially in the first act, there's a moment that happens with one of the family members, because I don't want to spoil anything if you haven't seen Hereditary, but it is probably one of the biggest oh shit moments in horror. Like, there are so many memes about this particular event in this movie. It's a crazy scene. You know what scene I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But after that, then you got the performance of Alex Wolff. Is it Alex Wolff that's in this? Or is his brother? I think it's Alex Wolff. But he lost his mind when he was doing this movie. Like, the actor himself. He said it was probably the most stressful acting job that he'd ever done. And you know, you can see the proof's in the pudding just watching his face, his expression throughout this movie. And you know, I think a lot of actors behind the scenes, they prep themselves for work. You know, they might even not sleep for days just to get into a character and give more realism to the character. And it shows, you know, because this is a movie that will last forever. So I understand why Alex put himself through what he did for this role. Number 3, Suspiria. I thought long and hard, should I put the remake or should I put the original? The original is Dario Argento, Italian horror. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go with the original, even though the remake could easily be on this list and probably fits in line with elevated horror even more than the original, which is just straight up Italian horror. But I still think it's masterwork by Dario Argento. I think it is his best work. To give us this masterclass direction, but also some of the creepiest yet most beautiful imagery ever put to film. It's still to this day, there's nothing like Suspiria. You know, this was the last movie that they used Technicolor. And it just, you know, I guess it's just like spice for your horror movie. It's just another element that you can lather over the top of the formula. And it works so well. It just makes it so memorable. And this is the first time I guess I'm going to talk about the music, because the score by Goblin I think is just as important as the movie itself. And I think there's a reason why we're still talking about Suspiria to this day. You know, what is it, almost like 50 years later? But it still stands up next to everything that has come out today. It's still so unique. Okay, number 2, The Witch. Damn, this is a creepy ass movie, like no bones about it. And I think when you're dealing with like witchcraft and devil type stuff, you throw a forest in there. You throw a forest in there and then it just adds another layer to it. But man, the direction from Robert Eggers, I mean, so like calm and collected throughout. And this is another one of those movies that deals with religion and this family that's accusing their daughter of being a devil worshiper, you know, being involved in witchcraft. So there's like a point in the movie where she's just like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna end up becoming the one thing that you're accusing me of. But the last scene in The Witch is one of the most like visually unsettling and hypnotic scenes I think I've ever seen. It's one of those movies that like when it's over, you can't really move. You know, you're kind of like stuck in your seat for like the next 5 minutes just trying to process what the hell just happened. Okay, number 1, can you guess what it is? It Follows. It freaking Follows. This is easily the most polarizing movie I have ever seen. There are people that will literally get pissed off at you for liking this movie. And to be fair, you got the others too that'll say, how could you not like this movie? I've probably said that. But I think at the end of the day, It Follows is just so damn unique. It pushes the boundaries of horror. It doesn't follow the cookie cutter routine of what it could have been, because it is a straightforward, almost like slasher with like some maybe fantasy elements to it, or supernatural elements really, because it deals with it trying to kill you if you had sex. It's a very unique plot, but man, David Robert Mitchell's direction in this, like every shot, every movement was so important to the, you know, the intended outcome of the movie. You know, just everything counted, even down to Disaster Piece's score. I think his score is just as important as the movie itself. You know, it's the guide of the movie, the mood, the tone of the movie. And bottom line with It Follows, it was one of the first movies to legitimately scare the shit out of me for a long time. You know, and I usually don't get scared by movies at all, but there's just some really unsettling imagery in this quite a few times throughout. And really, you never know where it's going to go. If anything, if you had to pick it apart, I'd say the final act might be the weakest part of the movie, and it's still awesome. But I have met people too that did not like this movie, or I guess didn't get the movie when they first saw it, but then eventually they came around to it, and now they end up loving it. And let me know down in the comments if that's happened with you guys, if you didn't like this movie and then you ended up like adoring it. I liked it from the get-go. It's one of those movies that I could not get out of my head after I watched it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And really, that's kind of what elevated horror movies do anyway. You know, I guess to close this off. There's like a mysterious nature to them. And even if you don't like most elevated horror movies, you definitely can't get them out of your head after. You know, I guess they're kind of haunting in nature. So there you go, guys. Top 10 favorite elevated horror movies. I don't know what else you would call this list, but thank you, Victoria, for recommending this top 10. Had so much fun discussing these with you. Some of these are tough to discuss too, by the way. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day on Fridays. We do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.